You guys, in today's video, I wanted to talk about my life, which I typically don't talk about in my videos. But this week marks the 1-year anniversary of my husband's death. I was married over 30 years. My husband was diagnosed with cancer. It was a very serious cancer, but at first we were told that it was very treatable and that he would live a long life. Well, after about 6 to 7 months, when my husband continued to lose weight and started having a lot of pain, we insisted that the physician do a PET scan, a scan of his entire body, and just make sure that the oncologist hadn't missed anything. Well, the results came back from the PET scan. After a couple of biopsies that were telling us, oh, you're fine, a couple of different tests and scans that said, you're fine, don't worry, we'll see you again in 3 months. But when we finally insisted on that PET scan, it revealed that the cancer had metastasized to many parts of his body, in his bones, in his soft tissue. It was in his jaw, in his spine, in his lungs, in his arms, in his legs, in his hip. It was all over his body. They told us he had about 4 to 8 months to live. We were so shocked because we were told when they first found the cancer how treatable it was. We were even told after his initial surgery, when they removed the cancer, that he didn't need chemo because they thought they had gotten it all. They were going to do some radiation just as a precaution, and they were going to check back on him with all these tests and make sure that the cancer was not back. But he was going to be fine. Well, you can imagine the heartbreak when we realized that they were wrong and he only had a few months to live. I had been working out of town when my husband called me with the initial diagnosis of cancer. It was squamous cell carcinoma. I thought a very treatable form of cancer, but I do know that it can metastasize, so we did take it seriously, and he did have the surgery very soon after and even had lymph nodes removed. But when I realized just how serious it was, I quit my job and I stayed home full time. And I'm so glad I did. That last year and 3 months of my husband's life, I was not working, and we were together most of the time in that last year and 3 months. I have no regrets about giving up a job I loved, a very well-paying job, and being home full time. But I have to tell you, this past year has been very difficult. Even though we had the diagnosis of cancer and we knew it was serious, I had given up my job because I thought it was so serious, we both had hope that he was going to live. But when he started to just continue, when he continued to lose weight, even after the radiation, and started having pain, he couldn't move his neck after some point. It was a horrible progression before he died. It was a tremendous amount of weight loss and muscle mass loss. And it was hard to see my big, handsome husband lose so much weight and become frail. I know one day, it was probably a month, maybe 6 weeks before he passed away, our granddaughter, who was less than 2 years old, toddled over to him and wanted him to pick her up. And he couldn't pick her up. He did not have the strength to pick her up. He was sitting on the couch, but he could not lift her up. He began to cry. And of course, I began to tear up as well. But I didn't want to scare my granddaughter, so I tried to, stop my tears and then picked my granddaughter up. Well, I'm making this video today to just encourage any of you that have lost a spouse. It is so far the most difficult thing I've ever been through. It's been 1 year this week, and there were days at first that I don't really think I had accepted it. I would hear what I thought was the garage doors opening, or I would think I heard, I would think he was still in the house sometimes. No, I don't mean like a ghost. I mean, I would just kind of forget that he wasn't there. I would hear him and think, oh yeah, Steve's home. But then it would hit me, pretty quickly. Oh no, he's not home. He's never coming home. So the first few months were like that. And the second few months were very, very sad. And these past 6 months have also been very sad. But I have to say, there has been a few days that I wasn't just totally sad. There were some days that I felt like there was actually one day in particular. I took a job after he passed away. I did nothing for a few months, and then I was looking at a website to check out when a 5K was going to happen because I thought, well, maybe I'll start running again and do a 5K. Maybe that'll cheer me up to have something to do. And when I was on the website looking for the 5K, I noticed they had careers, and I clicked on that link, and it mentioned a job opening. I just on a whim applied for that job, and I was offered that job. I took it because I just needed something to do. I needed to get busy. Sitting home every day was not helping my mood. I took the job. It was very good for me. But I remember the day, it was in October, when I was leaving one building, walking to another building, and I had this overwhelming feeling like I had jumped off a high diving board and I had gone super, deep into the water. The higher the diving board, the deeper you go in the pool. And I had this feeling like as I was walking from one building to the next, it was like I was coming up for air, and I was just not quite going to make it. But when I got to the top of the water and I took that big breath of air, I was like, oh, thank goodness I took that breath of air. And it was at that moment that I felt like I had made progress in this grief that I was experiencing. It was really a day where I felt like the grief I had come to the surface, and I had taken a big breath of air. And I had such hope in that moment because I thought, I'm going to be okay. And for a few days, I did feel so much better. Now, I don't feel wonderful all the time. I still have a lot of sadness because it has only been a year. But I want to encourage you today that it does gradually, at least in my life, the grief has gradually weakened. I do think I am less sad today than I was at first. I'm less sad today than I was 2 months post his death. I honestly want to say at first, when he first passed away, those first few days, it was almost a relief because he had suffered so much. It was horrible to see him suffer. Those last really couple of months were so difficult. But then, it really set in that he was gone, and the grief was just almost overwhelming. But I want to encourage you today that if you are experiencing grief, reach out for help. There is help out there, and you can get through this. One day at a time, maybe 1 hour at a time, maybe even just one moment at a time. But don't give up. You can do it. Until next time, bye.